can't even read the menu." He said it loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Too bad she spoke better French than he ever could. The clink of silverware, low hum of conversation, and the smell of butter and garlic filled Le Vieux Marché, a small French-style bistro tucked off Magazine Street in New Orleans. It was lunch hour, and the room was full. Not chaotic, just steady. Local professors, lawyers, tourists with cameras around their necks, and 2 construction workers sharing a bottle of Topo Chico at the bar. And then came him, Sterling Bradford Whitmore, a name whispered in tech circles, printed in Forbes, and plastered across business podcasts. Tall, tan, and tailored, every inch of his appearance said, "I own the room." He walked in without a reservation, sunglasses still on, Bluetooth earpiece flashing. A man like that didn't ask for a table. He expected one. "Party of one," he said flatly, not looking up from his phone. The hostess nodded, trying to hide her nerves. "Of course, right this way, sir." Sterling took the corner table with the best lighting, the one usually reserved for regulars. He sat like he expected the room to adjust around him. Across the room, Imani Dupree, a tall black woman in her late 30s, adjusted her apron and grabbed her notepad. She had worked at Le Vieux Marché for nearly 4 years. Today was like any other, or at least it started that way. She approached the table with a calm, easy smile. "Good afternoon. My name's Imani. I'll be taking care of you today. Would you like still or sparkling?" Sterling cut her off with a grunt and waved his hand toward the black, leather-bound menu. "This entire thing is in French?" he said, flipping through the pages with dramatic disgust. "You'd think in America we'd use English." Imani didn't flinch. "That's actually part of the experience here. We do offer translations if you need." Sterling smirked, turned slightly in his seat, and loudly declared, "She can't even read the menu. What kind of place hires someone who doesn't even understand what she's serving?" Everything stopped. You could hear a fork clatter 3 tables over. A busboy froze mid-pour. A couple near the window looked at each other, unsure if they heard him right. Imani blinked. Just once. Her jaw didn't tighten. Her face didn't twist. She just stood there, pen in hand, looking at the man who had just tried to crush her in public with a single sentence. Then, calmly, softly, she turned the menu toward him, placed a finger near the top, and began to speak. "Le potage du jour est un velouté de courgettes, avec une pointe de crème fraîche et des herbes fraîches de la région." The French rolled off her tongue like silk, crisp, clear, confident. She looked him in the eye. "That's a zucchini soup with a touch of crème fraîche and fresh herbs. Would you like to hear the rest of the menu?" Sterling blinked, caught off guard. He gave a half laugh, like maybe she was joking. She wasn't. She continued, still in French. "Le canard confit est mariné pendant 24 heures." She translated each word, dish by dish. Then, and this part no one forgot, she gently corrected his own pronunciation of bœuf bourguignon, the dish he attempted to order earlier with his nose in the air. By the time she was done, the room had changed. Sterling had no smirk left, just silence, embarrassed silence. Imani closed the menu gently, placed it down, and waited. "Still or sparkling?" she asked again, voice calm as ever. Sterling cleared his throat. "Still." "Very good, sir," she said, and walked off like it never happened. But the whispers started the moment she turned her back. Sterling Bradford. Whitmore wasn't always that guy. He wasn't always the man who talked loud enough for strangers to feel small. He grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana. Middle kid, middle class. His mom taught 6th grade math. His dad ran a parts shop that always smelled like grease and cardboard. Sterling was smart. Smart enough to notice when people treated his father like he didn't belong in the room, especially in board meetings after he tried to franchise. That stuck with Sterling. He made a silent promise in high school that he would never walk into a room and feel less than ever again. He went to Tulane on a scholarship, never joined a frat, never went to a football game. Just studied. Computer science and finance. Didn't talk much. Didn't party. But by graduation, he'd built a tool that helped small businesses manage cash flow without hiring a full-time CFO. 3 years later, that tool was acquired for 8 figures, and Sterling became someone people returned his calls for. Then came the money. And the problem was, once you've been made to feel small for long enough, sometimes when you finally get power, you swing it like a hammer. Sterling started showing up to meetings late, just to prove he could. He corrected people in public, not to help them, but to show he was smarter. He talked over waiters. He made backhanded jokes at interns. The money didn't make him rude. It just gave him a platform to be loud with it. His assistant Trish once told him he'd become hard to defend. He shrugged. Success doesn't ask permission. He didn't mean to come across as cruel, at least not all the time. But in his world, the louder you were, the less people noticed when you were wrong. And that worked. Until it didn't. Because here's the truth. Sterling thought the world was still playing the game by his rules. He walked into that French bistro thinking it was just another chessboard, another stage, another chance to show off. He thought Imani was just a waitress, someone paid to smile and nod and carry things back and forth. He assumed it. And that's what this was really about. Assumptions. Quiet ones. The kind that grow in people who think money means knowledge and power equals truth. Sterling didn't care about the menu. He didn't even like French food. What bothered him, what really lit the fuse, was the thought that someone who looked like Imani might know something he didn't. So he tried to cut her down before anyone noticed. That's how fragile confidence works sometimes. You burn the house down just to avoid sitting in someone else's shadow. And Sterling, for all his charm and money, was deeply afraid of being outshined. He spent years building a world where he was the expert, the boss, the man with answers. And that world never required him to think twice about the way he talked to people like Imani, until now. But the thing about power is, when you use it to step on the wrong person, the fall can come faster than you ever expect. Imani Dupree didn't dream of serving duck confit to rich men who didn't make eye contact. That wasn't the plan. She was born and raised in Baton Rouge, oldest of 4. Her mom was a librarian who read to her every night, sometimes in French, sometimes in Spanish. Her dad worked for the city, quiet man with good hands and a laugh that could fix a bad day. By the time Imani was 10, she was reading novels in 2 languages. By 16, she'd picked up German, not in a show-off way, just because it fascinated her how different people shaped meaning with different sounds. She got a full ride to Spelman, majored in linguistics, minored in African studies, and when she was 22, she got accepted into a post-grad language immersion program in Paris. She didn't even tell her friends right away. She just stared at the email for 10 minutes, crying quietly at the library desk. She lived in the 11th arrondissement. Small apartment, no elevator. She'd walk to class, scarf tucked up under her chin, practicing phonetics under her breath. She loved the rhythm of French, the precision, the elegance. But love didn't pay rent. After graduation, she moved back home to help her sister raise her kids. Her mom had gotten sick, and the family needed help. Imani applied for teaching positions, interpreter roles, anything remotely in her field. Nothing stuck. Budget cuts. Overqualified. Try again next semester. Eventually, she walked into Le Vieux Marché, just looking for a side gig. The manager liked her voice. "You sound like someone who's read too many books," he said, handing her a black apron. Imani never complained. She folded napkins like it was choreography. She listened to customers fumble over coq au vin and bouillabaisse without rolling her eyes. She helped the kitchen translate orders when tourists got confused, but most of all, she paid attention to everything. She noticed the couple who always split the crème brûlée, the man who ordered in perfect French but never tipped more than 5%, the older black woman who came alone every other Tuesday and brought her own tea bags. Imani didn't just work there, she watched, she studied. She told herself it was temporary, that one day she'd teach again, or interpret at the UN, or help students fall in love with words the way she did. But life didn't always rush back in your direction just because you were patient. So she stayed, worked doubles, helped out. And she told herself, grace isn't something you show when things are going well. Grace is what you hold on to when no one sees your full value. And you carry yourself like they do. So when Sterling walked in that afternoon, big watch, bigger voice, making assumptions before his seat was warm, Imani didn't see power. She saw a man who thought silence meant inferiority, and he picked the wrong woman to speak down to. Because Imani wasn't just fluent in French. She was fluent in pride, fluent in control, fluent in knowing exactly when not to react. That's what threw him. Not the translation, not the vocabulary. It was the fact that she didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't try to prove anything. She just spoke clearly and fully. the way people only do when they know exactly who they are. But the real surprise wasn't how she answered him. It was how the rest of the restaurant would respond next. The room didn't go back to normal. It just sat there, quiet but heavy. People pretended to keep eating, but their forks moved slower. Even the kitchen, normally a chorus of pans and clatter, felt like it had paused mid-breath. Sterling shifted in his chair like he had an itch he couldn't scratch. Amani returned a minute later with his water. Still, no ice in a crystal-clear glass that caught the sunlight just right. She placed it gently in front of him. He didn't say thank you. She pulled her notepad out again, pen ready. Would you like to hear the chef's recommendation, or have you decided? Sterling cleared his throat. I'll have the, He glanced at the menu again, then mumbled, the beef bourguignon? Amani tilted her head slightly. Boeuf bourguignon, sir, she corrected softly. It's a slow-braised beef stew with red wine, pearl onions, and carrots. Very tender. He blinked. Right. That. Excellent choice, she said, writing it down. And for your starter? He stared at her, jaw tight. You memorized the menu? Yes, she said plainly. All of it? He sounded like he couldn't believe it. Every ingredient, every wine pairing, and every allergen warning. He didn't respond. The couple across from him, maybe late 60s, gave Amani the tiniest smile as she walked by. The man gave a little nod. She didn't smile back, not out of rudeness, but because she didn't need applause. She wasn't performing. This was her job. Sterling sat back in his chair, picked up the water glass, and took a sip. You could tell he hated that everyone saw that moment, that his words didn't land, that someone, especially someone he had already decided was beneath him, had cracked his image in front of a crowd. Amani brought his starter a few minutes later, a small bowl of velvety green soup, the potage du jour she'd spoken about earlier. Your zucchini velouté with herbs and crème fraîche, she said. He looked down at it, then back at her. Did you go to culinary school or something? He asked, still trying to assert something, anything. No, sir, she said. I studied language in Paris. His eyebrows lifted just slightly. What were you doing there? Learning how people speak when they want to be understood. There was no sarcasm in her voice, no smirk, just facts. I see, he muttered, and went quiet. She turned to leave, but before she took a step, he called out, You know, I wasn't trying to be rude earlier. A man at the bar let out a quick breath. Not quite a laugh, not quite a cough. Sterling heard it, ignored it. I was just surprised, he continued. Most people working in restaurants like this, well, you don't expect... You don't expect what, sir? She asked. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't bait. It was a mirror. He looked at her for a long second, maybe too long. Then he said the worst thing he could have chosen. I didn't mean anything by it. She let that hang in the air for a second, then said, Meaning doesn't erase impact, Mr. Whitmore. His mouth opened slightly, probably ready to argue, but she was already gone, off to table 5, where a family of 3 waited politely for refills. At that point, no one in the restaurant was pretending not to notice anymore. People were whispering, some taking discreet glances his way. The tension wasn't loud. It was tight, like everyone was waiting to see if he'd explode, storm out, or try to fix what he broke. But he didn't leave. He stayed, ate in silence, eyes low, barely touched his wine. And when Imani returned with the check, because he didn't ask for dessert, she didn't look for a tip, a compliment, or redemption. She just said, Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. She walked away, simple as that. And Sterling sat there, staring at the bill, wondering how a $20 soup and a few French words had stripped away years of ego in less than 20 minutes. But the part he didn't know yet, the part that would change everything, was that someone had been recording the entire thing. It started with a whisper, then came the phone screen. A girl at the table near the wall, college-aged, thick curls piled high on her head, had caught most of it on video. The comment, the correction, the French, the silence, all of it. She hadn't meant to stir anything up. She just thought, a billionaire talks down to a waitress and gets schooled? People should see this. She uploaded the clip to her Instagram story before her crème brûlée even hit the table. Across the room, the kitchen staff got wind of what happened. Word passed between line cooks like a game of telephone. Sterling Whitmore, someone whispered. Yeah, that guy with the tech app. No, the new one. He tried to embarrass Amani. She hit him with that chef's kiss French. Shut him down. Amani didn't hear any of it. She stayed busy, filling water glasses, dropping off dessert menus, checking on allergies like it was just another Wednesday. But people noticed. A woman near the window gave her a handwritten thank you on the back of a receipt. One of the bartenders quietly put her shift drink on the house. Even the manager, a gruff guy named Stan, who mostly stayed glued to his spreadsheet, stepped out of the office just long enough to pat her shoulder and mutter, "Good work out there." Amani gave the same nod she always gave. Still didn't smile. She didn't need to. Sterling? He paid the bill. No tip. And when he left, it wasn't with his usual chest-out swagger. He didn't make a call or flash a smile or slide on his sunglasses like he was headed somewhere important. He just walked out. Through the front door, past the couple who refused to look at him, past the hostess who didn't say goodbye, and into the daylight, where no one clapped, no one followed, and no one offered him the validation he usually fed on. Inside, someone finally asked Amani the question out loud. You okay? It came from a dishwasher, Jalen, barely 19, always wore headphones on one ear. He said it so quietly, she almost didn't hear. Amani exhaled, tied the back of her apron tighter, and said, I'm fine. He just thought I was small. You're not. I know. She didn't need revenge, or apologies, or anything loud. She just needed to hold her own. And she did. By the end of the shift, the video was already making the rounds. Waitress shuts down Billionaire in French. Tech bro gets humbled. Grace under fire, the Amani Dupree way. Someone even added subtitles, but Amani didn't check her phone. She walked to her car like always, slow and steady, keys in one hand, jacket in the other. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Not for her mistakes, or her resume, or her past, but for the strength she'd built in silence. But strength alone wouldn't be enough to handle what was coming next. It took less than 24 hours. By noon the next day, the clip had been reposted over 200 times. By evening, it hit the front page of Reddit. The caption changed with every upload, but the story stayed the same. A billionaire got checked by a woman who had nothing to prove. Then came the calls, local news, bloggers, talk shows, even a podcast that usually just interviewed celebrities about skincare wanted her to talk about the moment. Amani ignored all of them. She turned off notifications, tucked her phone under her pillow, and went to work like always. Stan, the manager, pulled her aside. You got the press in the parking lot. Don't let them in. This ain't TMZ. I don't want anything from them, she said. You sure? That kind of buzz? You could cash in. She gave him a look. It wasn't angry, just tired. Not everything's for sale, Stan. He backed off. Meanwhile, Sterling? He disappeared. No tweets, no comments. His assistant stopped answering press emails. Rumors floated that he was handling a private matter or in a transition period. But people online weren't buying it. They were digging. Someone pulled clips from old interviews where he cut people off mid-question. Someone else posted screenshots of tweets where he'd mocked accents or corrected people's grammar publicly. And just like that, a picture started to form. Not just of a man who made a mistake, but of a man who'd been comfortable making others feel small for years. The internet is a strange beast. It can make you a villain overnight, but it can also lift people up in ways they never expected. Amani's old college professor emailed her. Saw the clip. You handled yourself with more grace than most diplomats I know. A former classmate from Paris sent a message in French. You haven't lost your touch. Beautifully done. Even the bistro got flooded with reservations. Some customers writing Amani's section only in the request box. Still, she kept her head down, took shifts, washed her own glassware, didn't dress any different, didn't talk about it unless someone made her. Until one afternoon, 4 days after it all started, a reporter finally caught her outside, near her car. Microphone in hand, cameraman behind him. Ms. Dupree, can we ask just one question? She sighed, looked over her shoulder at the back door, then turned back. Only one, she said. What was going through your mind in that moment? She paused, then answered. Nothing complicated. He talked to me like I was small. I just reminded him I'm not. The reporter blinked, That wasn't the quote he was hoping for. Are you mad at him? Do you want an apology? I want him to think next time, that's it. Then she got in her car and drove off. And even though she didn't ask for it, didn't chase it, didn't try to go viral, people noticed her for exactly who she was. Not just a waitress, not just the woman who spoke French better than a tech billionaire, but a person who carried herself with dignity when the world expected a reaction. But before everything quieted down again, Sterling would break his silence. And when he did, no one was expecting what he said. The statement came 5 days later, not a press conference, not a flashy tweet, just a PDF on Sterling's company website titled, "A Public Response from Sterling B. Whitmore." Most people expected damage control, maybe a half-hearted apology written by a PR team buried under legal jargon. But it was different. The letter began simply, "I spoke to someone in a way I never should have. I thought money made me important. I thought silence meant I was right. I was wrong on both counts." That caught people off guard. He went on to say he watched the video, not once, but over 20 times. He admitted the power in Imani's voice shook him, not because she embarrassed him, but because she didn't try to. She didn't come at him with rage or pettiness. She came with facts, calm, truth. She didn't clap back. She didn't curse me out. She didn't need to. That's what made it hit harder. The letter ended with this: "I don't expect forgiveness. I expect to earn back my place by listening. And if I ever meet Ms. Dupree again, the first thing I'll say is thank you, because no one's ever held a mirror up to me so clearly." It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. The internet didn't let him off the hook, but some people nodded, said maybe he was learning something. Others didn't care. They were just glad Imani's name was finally being spoken with respect. Imani read the letter one morning before her shift. She didn't comment, didn't repost it, just folded the page in half, slipped it into her bag, and went to work. That night, while wiping down table 7, a teenager walked in, maybe 16, twist out in her hair, oversized hoodie, nervous energy all over her. She waited until Imani finished up and said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" Imani nodded. "That thing with the guy, you weren't scared?" Imani smiled. "Of him, no." The girl fidgeted. "I think I would have cried, or cussed him out." "I thought about it," Imani said, "but then I remembered who I was." The girl nodded slowly. "Yeah." She started to turn, but Imani called out, "Hey!" She turned back. "You don't have to shrink to make people comfortable. Ever, you hear me?" The girl smiled, a real one this time, and left. And that was the thing. Imani didn't go viral because she spoke French. She went viral because she held on to her worth. In a room where someone tried to take it away. And she did it without yelling, without proving, without performing, just truth and presence. Because sometimes the loudest power is the kind that never raises its voice. If this story made you feel something, if it made you think about how we speak to people, how we make assumptions, or how we carry ourselves when no one claps, then maybe take that with you. Speak softer, listen harder, and remember, power isn't what you say, it's how you stand. If you believe respect shouldn't depend on a job title or a paycheck, share this story. Someone out there might need the reminder that they don't have to shrink to be seen.